No one remembered who first detected the signal. That fact alone should have unsettled the galactic concord. Every major discovery in known history had a name attached to it. An admiral, a scientist, a Save guild, a corporate sponsor. Credit was currency. Glory was law. Yet the moment humanity announced its presence to the wider galaxy, there was no individual to blame or praise. Only a timestamp, a frequency band, and a single, impossible anomaly. An unregistered civilization had answered a deep space probe that had been drifting, forgotten, for nearly 800 standard cycles. The probe had not been designed to receive replies. It had been launched by the Keelian Ascendancy during the early expansion era, back when the Concord was still forming and the galaxy was quieter, smaller, and far more naive. The probe's purpose was simple: map radiation fields, record stellar drift, and transmit telemetry until its reactor died. It had no diplomatic suite, no translation matrix, and certainly no first contact protocols. And yet, drifting at the edge of a yellow star system in an unremarkable spiral arm, it received a signal. A structured signal. Not a burst. Not noise. Not gravitational lensing or stellar interference. A reply. The Concord reacts. Within hours, the discovery spread through secure channels. Within days, it reached the upper tiers of the Galactic Concord Council. Within weeks, the chamber was full for the first time in over a century. Ambassador Tukrell of the Virexi Collective sat motionless at his station, his compound eyes reflecting layers of holographic data. He had witnessed 3 first contacts in his lifetime. None had begun like this. "Clarify," he said, his voice translated into smooth Concord standard. "You are telling us the signal did not originate from any registered polity?" "That is correct," replied Archivist Senvier, a being of crystalline lattices and photonic pulses. The star system was categorized as pre-sentient during the second expansion survey. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Pre-sentient systems were common. Thousands existed. Most hosted microbial life, some simple multicellular organisms. A few rare worlds were monitored for early tool use. None were supposed to answer probes. The response, Senvier continued, demonstrates advanced signal modulation, error correction, and intentional linguistic patterning. "How advanced?" demanded High Marshal Orwin of the Car Dominion. Senvier paused. "A dangerous thing for an archivist to do. Comparable," she said carefully, "to mid-tier Concord standards." Silence fell. Mid-tier meant interstellar capability. It meant industrialized starflight. It meant weapons. It meant a civilization that should have been noticed. The signal itself. The signal was displayed at the center of the chamber, rotating slowly in laid dimensions, frequency, amplitude, mathematical symmetry. Ambassador Lethra of the Oralith Choir leaned forward, her bioluminescent filaments dimming in concentration. "This is inelegant," she said. Several delegates turned toward her. "The structure lacks harmonic balance," she continued. "It is brutally efficient, redundant, over-engineered." "That is not a crime," Orwin growled. "No," Lethra replied softly, "but it is unusual. Civilizations with this level of capability typically favor optimization over excess." Senvier adjusted the display, isolating a repeating pattern. They included reference constants, she said. Hydrogen hyperfine transition, prime number sequences, universal mathematical anchors, standard greeting markers, Tukrell observed. "Yes," Senvier agreed, "but there is more." The pattern shifted again. Visual representations appeared. Crude, angular shapes approximating biological forms. Star maps followed, distorted but decipherable. Then came something no one expected. A warning. Translated cautiously, the closest approximation read, "We are here. We are aware. Approach with intent." The chamber erupted. Fear and curiosity. Hostile posturing, snapped Orwin. Defensive caution, countered Tukrell. A cultural misinterpretation, suggested Lethra. Their communication style may be inherently direct. Or inherently violent, Orwin said. The High Marshal's mandibles flexed. His species had nearly been annihilated during their own first contact. He trusted strength more than optimism. "What concerns me," he continued, "is not the message, but the timing. That probe has been silent for centuries." They responded almost immediately. Senvier nodded. "Within 12 local hours." That implies continuous monitoring, Tekrell said slowly, of deep space. And of us, Orwin finished. The forgotten world. Attention turned to the star system itself. A yellow main sequence star. 8 major planetary bodies. 1 habitable world, rich in liquid water and tectonic instability. Designation, Sol 3. Local name, recently decoded from the signal's linguistic samples. Earth. Survey data resurfaced. Old, incomplete, and embarrassingly dismissive. Carbon-based life. Aggressive biosphere. Predatory dominance. Tool use observed in primate analogs. Early metallurgy detected. No orbital infrastructure at time of last scan. That scan had been conducted 700 cycles ago. In 700 cycles, Lefra murmured, even a slow species could advance significantly. But not unnoticed, Orwin insisted. Senvier brought up additional data. Faint electromagnetic leakage. Radiation spikes. Artificial satellites, thousands of them, now encircled the planet like metallic debris. The industrialized rapidly, she said. Exceptionally rapidly. How rapidly? Tekrell asked. Senvier hesitated again. They progressed from chemical propulsion to primitive nuclear fission in less than 200 local years. The chamber fell silent once more. That was fast. Uncomfortably fast. Humanity observed. As more data was decoded from intercepted broadcasts, a picture began to form. The species called themselves humans. They were physically unimpressive by Concord standards. No natural armor, no claws of note, limited sensory range, fragile biological systems reliant on a narrow atmospheric band. And yet, they were relentless. The media overflowed with stories of conflict, war as entertainment, as history, as cautionary tale and aspiration both. They glorified exploration, yet feared the unknown. They feared extinction, yet flirted with it constantly. They simulate annihilation for recreation, Lefra whispered, reviewing cultural data. They weaponize mathematics, Senvier added. The encryption methodologies are aggressive. And they broadcast, Orwin said, almost incredulous. They shout into the void without knowing who listens. Tekrell folded his volumes together. A species that fears invasion, he said, but announces itself anyway. The decision. Protocol demanded caution, observation, quarantine if necessary, but the signal had already broken protocol. Humanity knew someone was out there. Ignoring them now could be interpreted as hostility or weakness. We must respond, Tekrell said finally. With a fleet, Orwin insisted. With a voice, Lefra counted. The debate raged for hours. Military projections clashed with diplomatic models. Risk assessments ballooned. Simulations failed to converge. In the end, compromise prevailed. A single envoy vessel would be dispatched, unarmed by Concord standards, shielded, monitored. Its mission, establish peaceful contact, assess threat potential, and withdraw if necessary. The envoy would carry a message. One carefully worded response. We acknowledge you. We seek understanding. We come in peace. As the decision was ratified, Senvier quietly ran one final analysis. She did not like the results. Elsewhere, Earth, in a subterranean facility buried beneath reinforced stone and decades of secrecy, a human analyst stared at a screen filled with alien symbols. Sir, she said, her voice tight. They answered. General Marcus Hale did not smile. He had spent his entire career preparing for wars that never came and dismissing threats that eventually did. He had read every decoded fragment, every intercepted anomaly. He had seen the probe. They took long enough, he said. Do we respond again? Hale considered the question, eyes fixed on the rotating hologram of an alien star map. No, he said finally. Not yet. He turned to the room of scientists, soldiers, and diplomats. Let them come to us. Somewhere beyond the edge of the solar system, humanity waited, and the galaxy, for the first time, began to understand that it might not be alone with its fears anymore. The envoy ship Concord and Dawn crossed into the Sol system under layers of passive shielding and diplomatic restraint. From the outside, it was a marvel of galactic engineering. Smooth, adaptive hull plating, energy flows bending light around its frame, propulsion systems that whispered rather than roared. By Concord standards, it was a gesture of peace. By human standards, it was unmistakably a warship. Every sensor on Earth lit up at once. First sight. At NORAD's subterranean command complex, alarms did not blare. There was no panic. Humanity had grown used to false alerts, asteroids, solar flares, unidentified launches. This was different. This object decelerated impossibly fast. It ignored orbital mechanics that humans still struggled to master. And it stopped. Perfectly. High above Earth's moon. General Marcus Hale watched the data scroll past in silence. No weapon signatures, he asked. None we can identify, replied Dr. Aisha Rahman, head of the Extraterrestrial Signals Directorate. But the energy output alone could power half the planet. Hale nodded. So could the sun. He folded his hands behind his back. Broadcast our reply, he said. Human response. The message was not poetic. It was not elegant. It was human. This is Earth. You are in our system. We acknowledge your presence. State your intent. A pause followed. On the Concordant Dawn, Ambassador Tukrell felt something unfamiliar tighten in his thorax. They do not defer, he observed. They do not threaten, Lefra replied. They stand. Senvier analyzed the transmission in real time. No attempt at deception, she said. No cultural padding. No symbolic subtext. Orwin bared his fangs. Predators do not announce themselves politely. Nor do cowards, Tukrell said. He authorized the next transmission. We are the Galactic Concord. We come in peace. We seek dialogue. The reply came almost instantly. So do we. But peace requires honesty. Approach no closer. The Concord delegates exchanged glances. They were being managed. The measure of humanity. Over the following days, dialogue expanded. Human linguists adapted rapidly. The AI-driven translation matrices evolving at a pace that unsettled Senvier Concord languages that normally took decades to master were parsed in weeks. We underestimated their cognition, she admitted. No, Lefra said softly. We underestimated their agency. Humanity asked questions, relentlessly, not just about the Concord, but about everything. How many civilizations existed? How many had gone extinct? What weapons were forbidden? Which laws were enforced, and by whom? Most telling of all, they asked about invasions. How many first contacts ended in war? Dr. Rahman asked during one exchange. Tukrell hesitated. More than we like to remember. And how many ended in extermination? Another pause. Enough, he said. The channel went silent for several seconds. When Hale spoke again, his voice was steady, but colder. Then understand this, he said. We are not naive. We are not harmless. And we are not looking for permission to exist. Orwin leaned forward. That sounds like defiance. Hale met his gaze through the screen. No, the human general said. That's a boundary. What the Concord found disturbing. As cultural exchanges deepened, analysts across the Concord began to grow uneasy. Humans did not rely on biological advantages. They compensated. Where they lacked armor, they built it. Where they lacked strength, they engineered leverage. Where they lacked unity, they weaponized cooperation under threat. Most unsettling of all was their relationship with war. They did not worship it. They remembered it. Human history was not a tale of endless conquest. It was a record of survival against themselves. They study their own failures obsessively, Senvier reported. They simulate catastrophic scenarios not to glorify them, but to avoid repeating them. And yet, Orwin said, the military capacity is vast. Yes, Senvier agreed, because they assume the worst and prepare accordingly. The Concord had met warrior species before. They had met peaceful ones too. Humanity was something else entirely. They were prepared to lose, and that made them dangerous. The demonstration. The breaking point came unexpectedly. A Concord long-range patrol vessel, operating independently near the system's edge, activated high-resolution scans of Earth's inner defenses without authorization. It was a minor violation, barely worth noting, until Earth responded. Within seconds, hundreds of human satellites shifted orbit. Lunar installations activated. Energy readings spiked across the system. Weapons did not fire. Instead, Earth transmitted a single data packet, star maps, trajectory calculations, and a predictive simulation. It showed, in chilling detail, how the patrol vessel could be destroyed in under 12 seconds, using technologies humans openly admitted were obsolete by their own standards. "This is a warning," Hale said calmly, "not a threat." Tukrel felt the weight of the moment settle heavily. "They could have fired," Lethra whispered. "Yes," Senvier said, "and they chose not to." Orun exhaled slowly. "Restraint," he said, "from a species this young." "For us," Tukrel corrected, "that is not weakness." Understanding. Negotiations shifted tone. The Concord stopped treating humanity as a developing species. Humanity stopped treating the Concord as potential invaders. Trust did not bloom, but respect did. Human diplomats were blunt, imperfect, and frustratingly honest. They refused protectorate status, declined military alliances, accepted observational cooperation, and limited trade frameworks. "We will walk with you," Hale said during the final summit, "but we won't kneel, and we won't lead." "Why not?" Lethra asked. Hale smiled faintly. "Because we're still learning how not to destroy ourselves." That answer echoed through the Concord archives for centuries. Aftermath. The Concordant Dawn departed Sol weeks later. No treaties were signed. No celebrations held. Yet something fundamental had changed. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy had met a species that did not ask what it could gain from the stars, but what the stars might take from it. Humanity was designated independent civilizational power, provisional status, a classification rarely used, almost never granted. As Tukrel prepared his final report, he added a personal note, something strictly against protocol. "Humanity is not the strongest species we have encountered, nor the most advanced, but they are the most aware of what they could become if pushed too far. Proceed with caution, and with respect. Earth." General Hale stood beneath an open sky for the first time in weeks, watching a faint point of light vanish beyond the moon. "Do you think they are afraid of us?" Dr. Rahman asked quietly. Hale considered the question. "No," he said. "I think they finally see us." "And is that good?" Hale looked up at the stars, vast, ancient, and no longer silent. "For them," he said, "time will tell."